Hey, Sea-Milk.
Yeah?
It's quite a nice road we're on, eh?
No, I got a freaking pounding headache and every bump I hit feels like the end of the world, so don't make jokes.
If you're interested in jokes in China, we just did an episode about that, by the way.
You're the unusually chipper right now. I feel like shit.
Yeah, I know. That's just the thing. I don't know what it is, but hangovers don't hit me that
I
hard.
just got a migraine. I don't even know if it's related.
It's probably related.
Probably.
I'm still smuggling a water in my jacket
Me too.
From earlier. If you don't know what's going on, if this is very confusing to you, just go back an episode and you'll probably
We've had quite the adventure.
Yeah, it's been fun. Anyway, we're going to be talking about the state of YouTube and the fact that YouTube has, you know, hit some of our videos.
It's videos that were hit before, but we just now know because YouTube's telling you kind of. And why?
Sort of. Yeah, which is kind of weird because look, we're not big YouTubers or anything like that.
Right.
I mean, we're kind of, what would you say, like
middle
entry
of the
level?
range.
I'd say we're kind of entry level into the successful YouTuber.
Yeah. We're
like
in that
very
stepping
entry
stone.
level.
We're a 4 or 5 out of 10.
We're a 5 out of 10?
4 or 5 out of 10, yeah.
4, I'd say 4 out of 10.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's hit the road and we're going to talk about it and just fill you guys in.
I feel like that's the first time anyone's rated YouTubers like on a hot or not scale.
Yeah.
Oh, doggy. I can't wait to rap, boys and girls, because my head hurts.
Yep. Well.
That guy's like took his shirt off. I kind of want to do the same thing.
Well, I've got water cooling, you know.
Yeah, I
this
do
water
too,
bottle.
but the water is like getting hot, so.
Yeah. Okay, so we're rolling through this beautiful countryside over here, and you know, it's kind of weird. Let's just talk about the state of our YouTube channels, because I'm sure by now you know that we're kind of like a team, Sea-Milk and myself, right?
We built a little company.
Yeah, almost like a little company, even though it's unofficial.
Well,
we're just
we
kind
are
of
verified.
yeah, first of all, we're verified, which is nice. That's something that takes a lot to get on YouTube.
Yeah.
We have 3 channels between us.
Yep.
Obviously, I have my Serpents at A channel, which is the first ever in China, by the way. First ever YouTuber in China. I can claim that accolade, which people give me shit for, but I didn't even know. One of my subscribers pointed it out to me a couple of years ago, and I was like, nah, you're joking. And then I searched, and there are no like YouTubers in China before me.
Right.
So it's true.
I wasn't. Well, I don't think I was number 2, was I? I might have been.
I think someone beat you out by like a month or something.
Yeah,
you're definitely,
they're not relevant.
Yeah, they're not relevant. Okay, so anyway, you're number 2 or number 3, whatever. But you've got probably the second most successful. Other than there's that Food Ranger guy, but he's a food show. He doesn't do China stuff.
We love Trevor. Shout out to Trevor.
Yeah.
By the way, but he's not a vlogging channel, and he's in a bunch of countries.
Yeah, like massive respect to what he does, but yeah, he's like the Food Network or something.
Yeah.
So as far as China YouTubers go, we're the 2 top ones at the moment anyway. So yeah, and then
3.
ADVChina, yeah, top 3 I guess. ADVChina is following fairly close behind, thanks to all of you guys who watch us.
Yep, very close.
I think it really is a great platform for us to discuss topics a little more in depth that we don't get to cover on our channels.
The unfortunate side of it is we are still victim to the drama that YouTube dishes.
Yeah, okay, and we just want to like talk about it because it's a bit strange. Anyway, I just also wanted to say that because we have very different styles as far as our own personal channels are concerned, it's actually really nice, I think, for our viewers, but also just for me and for you to be able to hash out these topics, and you know, we get our points across and we can debate and talk about them and throw in our own observations. And although you and I do tend to agree on a lot of things, of course we agree on them, but we have different takes on it. So I think it kind of works out. Anyway, how many of your videos were sort of demonetized during this whole like adpocalypse thing on your channel?
At its peak, it was at 25.
25, okay.
25 demonetized. So what happened was basically YouTube had already demonetized them, but didn't tell me anything. It still had that little green nubbin, that little green $sign that said it was okay. Yeah. Then they decided to put out a system to be a little bit more transparent, because people were freaking out watching their ad revenue go down. That truck literally almost scraped the wall there. I know, because he's trying to avoid the bad roads. Yeah, better watch out. He might just, you know, like turn into us like that. Yeah, we should probably stay away from him. Anyway. Yeah. So anyway, they introduced this thing where it shows you a little yellow thing, and it says it's not advertiser friendly, and they use some clever wording. They say you might not get ad revenue or limited ads will appear, right? But it turns out actually it's just demonetized. Like pretty much no ads will run on these videos, and that they determine them through their community guidelines whether they are ad friendly or not. And this is backlash all from the PewDiePie thing, and like basically these advertisers like, I can't believe our ads are on this like really non-family friendly racist content, blah blah, all this kind of stuff. So we kind of fell prey to this as well, and 25 of my videos were demonetized. Now what happens is you can submit it for manual review. So obviously these bots go through and they're like, oh, this video is offensive. So I submitted them for manual review, and about, I'd say 20-30% of them were deemed okay. And then they say, congratulations, actually your video's fine. And I was pretty fucking furious, dude, because like that means the whole time they were getting no money, and then they're like, oh, congratulations, by the way, we weren't wrong, we won't admit that. What we're gonna say is, you know what, you're fine, you go ahead, you know. Good for you. Good for you. That's so shit. I know. That's not fair. And then a bunch of the other ones were deemed inappropriate by manual review. Some of them I understand, like when we found dead people in Taiwan, we found skeletons in the sand or whatever. Maybe that bothers people, right? Maybe that can bother some. So I understand that. But like a bunch of them I just don't get. I just don't get it. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird. Yeah, it is weird. So ADV's been hit a little bit. But what about your channel? None. But the thing is, I have been hit by this kind of thing in the past. I mean, you know, my first ever, I could say, viral video, it's not really viral, it's got like 380,000 views, right? Right. Is I filmed a road rage thing where a guy like basically tried to kick the door in of a bus, and he's like punching and kicking the bus, right? Right. And that was back in the day of YouTube where that kind of thing was, you know, considered interesting, and you know. And they basically, it was weird. I couldn't monetize it back then. I couldn't monetize anyway. Yeah. But what they did, instead of like taking away monetization, is they said, this video is not yours. You have to prove that it's yours. So like they basically put a copyright strike against my channel. Wow. And I was like, what the hell? This is years ago. Right. I was like, why? I'm in the video, you can see me. Like half the video is me talking, and it's like, this is mine. They say you have to prove that it's your content and all that, and I'm like, that's bullshit. Well, so there's a little form you can type out. I said, well, it's me, I'm in the video, I made the video, I uploaded it. And I think it was because it had gotten a lot of views. Right. You know, that they were like, wait, something's not right here or something. Right. Anyway, they locked it off for monetization, could never be monetized, it's not mine, and it stopped growing. So I guess they just weren't promoting it or whatever. That's so crappy. It is. Two videos I wanted to use as an example. Yeah. The ones that were actually de-approved after manual review. Yeah. Massages in China, which is not the dodgy kind. It was just one of my videos that would literally go with my friends to get a massage. There's no foul language. Yeah. Nothing bad happens, and it's quite funny. Yeah. That got demonetized, and they said it's inappropriate. And you don't get an explanation at that point. Number two, perhaps most perplexing, is what do Chinese people think of tattoos? And I went around with my Chinese friend and asked people, and there's not one bad word. There's not one foul subject matter. The tattoos are not on scantily clad women. It's very, very like normal. It's one of the most normal videos ever made, and that was deemed inappropriate. No explanation. They won't talk to me about it. And it's just stupid. Yeah, I know. I can understand if there's a good reason behind it, but there isn't. And you know what, I'm afraid what's happening here, and this is honestly what I'm afraid of, is that they're being manually flagged by you know, overly sensitive haters who are just like clicking it, flagging, this is inappropriate, this is inappropriate, this is inappropriate, because they don't like us, and it's getting stuff basically demonetized just because they don't like us. It's funny that your channel hasn't been hit though. Yeah, that is strange. I find your haters a little bit even more inflammatory than mine. Yeah, that's true. And I find that your content does incite more sensitive issues at times, and I don't understand why you're safe. Well, I mean, it is weird. I just can't explain it. Right. Really. Well, I think that's the whole point. Is there's no transparency, right? Maybe it's because if you actually watch my videos, although I do sometimes use, you know, wake up, what are you doing? Are you turning left or right? What are you doing? What the hell? I'll just stop in the middle of the road. She's just staring at shit. Yeah, exactly. I think my topics, I do sometimes use fairly clickbaity titles and stuff. You know, people hate that.
haters gonna hate, but I'm gonna clickbait, you know.
Right.
Anyway, the thing
That's the nature of the beast.
yeah, exactly. I do use that, but if you watch my videos, I'm always very sort of concise and fair and balanced, and I don't jump to conclusions. I'm not immature about anything, you know.
Sure.
Sorry. So I think if someone were to manually review it and actually watch it, they'd be like, yeah, actually, you know,
You say
it's
that,
not
but like
offensive.
in my case, that doesn't make any sense.
That's true.
You know, I mean, sometimes it does, but
Yeah.
like you said, yeah, I agree with your argument, but we're trying to make sense of something that we don't understand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no one knows.
Yeah,
they?
anyway, ADVChina was hit with a whole bunch of them as well, and those I'm not quite sure why they would be.
Yeah, there's a couple of them that were just reviewed and said no.
I mean, you know, for instance, the one we did, like, there's a shortage of men in China.
yeah,
Was it men,
True.
men or?
yeah, it was men.
Okay.
Oh no, it was too many men.
Oh, sorry, yeah, there are too many men in China, because it's true, there's a woman shortage, right?
Right,
Because of the
30
gender
million
imbalance.
extra, yeah, surplus.
All we did was talk about facts, you know,
Right.
which is the truth. We just basically, we didn't go out there and like laugh at anyone or like
No.
talk down about anyone
It was
or
a
anything. We're
requested
just like,
topic.
this is what it is. This is how it's like. It's like, this is inappropriate. It's so weird. The only thing I can think it could be is that because we're talking about Chinese people, and
Yeah.
you know, like, Google's a very left-leaning company, incredibly left,
Right.
which is very apparent by that recent, you know, that guy got fired
Yeah.
recently for writing a memo,
Right.
and after what he's been saying about the company, it makes sense. They're incredibly left-leaning. They have all their like forced diversity classes and,
Right.
you know, like unconscious bias classes, and you know, that you have to go to no matter what, you know, that kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
So this brings up an interesting subject. Companies like Google and the people that sort of run the show there have this idea in their head that Chinese people are a minority.
Right.
You know, they're like a
most laughable
disadvantaged,
idea.
or they're like a
the hell
minority that's
happened here?
discriminated against or something.
Right.
But they're absolutely ridiculous, because Chinese people are a majority, and there are more Chinese people in the world than there are like anyone else.
Right. So they think that if you're talking about them from a white male perspective,
Yeah,
then you're
that
talking
you-
about a minority thing.
Yeah, exactly, which is absolute nonsense. We're the minority, you know?
I know.
We're talking about the majority here.
Right.
We're living in a communist country, talking about the people that live here and, you know, our experiences, and just explaining things away in a very sort of factual and very often anecdotal way as well. But, you know,
Yeah,
that's what
of
we
course.
do.
Right.
So that's the only explanation I can have, is that they're like, oh, look at these, you know, guys being racist by talking about Chinese people. They're talking about a minority, flag them, demonetize them. you know?
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, like, that one that was like forced electrocutions for internet camp, like internet addiction camp things, that was a news story that we covered.
Yeah.
That was deemed inappropriate after review. I mean, but there's no graphic footage or anything, so I found that a little bit weird, but maybe the subject matter or whatever. But like, yeah, it's like the one that you talked about, a bunch of videos like that have been demonetized. I don't get it.
Yeah,
Other
it's
than
kinda
your
silly.
explanation, which makes a little bit of sense to me.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is, man.
I'm
pretty sure.
YouTube doesn't keep trying to kill ADV and Law 86. I mean, it's getting obnoxious. I have to worry and fret. What principles here, YouTube? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big company, and they obviously can't pay attention to each and every creator, and that's a lot of it's left down to automation. But the
Right.
automation algorithms are unfortunately very biased and set to lean into a specific way, and
Right.
you know, I think we're just gonna have to put up with that. You know, it's just the way it is.
And I don't want it to shape our content, though.
No, and it won't.
No, well.
It won't, because, you know, we have these really supportive fans and, you know,
Patron.
subscribers. I don't like to use the word fan, actually. I'm going to take that back.
definitely not
I'm just going to say, like,
Supporters.
supporters and followers, because I do see our subscribers as peers. You know, if I meet them, whenever I meet them in real life, and I meet them all the time, you meet them too.
Yeah, and that's why I like to have comment. You know, comment.
I see them as like absolute equals and peers,
Right.
and it's so nice to meet them. I don't ever think like, oh, look, it's a fan. You know, I'm not that way. It's
No,
not my
no
not
way.
my way. Oh man, I'm not a fan of this road.
Oh, ow, me neither.
Yeah. So yeah,
Anyway.
anything you'd like to add to this whole thing, Simok?
I mean, whether you care about YouTube Drum or not, I mean, you might not have a channel yourself, but I kind of like to shed light on what's going on and what we're doing once in a while. It's nice to get behind the whole, you know, aspect and get behind the whole scene of what we're doing, so you guys can understand a little bit. But whether you do, you care or not, I implore you to like the video if you did, comment and subscribe. And holy shit, what's going on here? Jeez, look at this freaking.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. All right.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and whether or not you enjoy what we make or you hate our guts or whatever, as long as you're watching and we're getting that click, we love you all the same. So until next time, guys, seriously, unlike this awful road, which is how I signed off last time, stay awesome.
When I take a breath, you fill up my lungs. And if my mind's